My name is Dan. I'm the Customer Learning and Development Consultant here at RightCapital, and I'm really excited to be here with you today for this presentation of starting the year off right with RightCapital. So, in today's webinar, we're going to be touching on tips, tricks, and best practices related to the turn of the new year. So, we'll be reviewing things like the 2025 tax parameter updates, changes that have been made within the system to reflect new contribution limits, tax bracket thresholds, and more. We're then going to touch on some best practices related to reviewing your existing client plans and updating profile inputs and certain plan settings to make sure that those projections stay accurate and up to date. We'll also look at how you can utilize tasks and the vaults within RightCapital to make your lives easier in terms of asking clients for updated information, keeping track of your own to-dos, and really streamlining that process as much as possible. And lastly, we'll be wrapping up today by taking a quick look at the Right Intel module in the Advisor portal and how you can utilize that to identify areas of opportunity, as well as key life events that your clients may have on the horizon in 2025 and beyond. So that's our agenda for today. As I switch screens over to my RightCapital login here, I want to remind everyone that these webinars are recorded, and we do post the recordings of these webinars in our Help Center shortly after the presentations end. So if you have to step away at all during the presentation today, or if you want to watch this recording back after the fact at any point in time, this recording will be posted in our Help Center, and I'll show you where you can find that closer to the end of the presentation here. I do want to also mention for those of you that might be newer to RightCapital, these webinars are also interactive, and I want to hear from you. So if you have any questions at all as we're making our way through the presentation today, you should find a Q&A field in the Zoom control panel on your screen. Please feel free to write in. I'll be sticking around after the presentation to answer as many questions as I can until the top of the hour. So don't hesitate to write in with those questions. I'm here to help however I can. All right, so let's dive in here. Let's get the more technical information out of the way first and start by reviewing the updated tax parameters. And these are important to talk about because as a result of these changes, you'll likely see some slight differences in your client plans compared to what they looked like at the end of last year. So, if the probability of success is a little bit different, or if a client's ending assets are a little bit different, know that that's completely normal and it's likely due to one or more of the updates that we're about to touch on here. So I want to start by talking about savings. As I'm sure we all know, there wasn't a change to IRA contribution limits this year, but there was a change to the 401k contribution limit. So let's quickly dive into a client plan here and take a quick look. So within our plan here for Barry Allen and Iris West, we can find any 401k contributions they might be making by clicking into the profile in the upper right, and then again into the savings tab. And in this case, we have our 401k savings card here for Barry. So the thing I'll mention here is that one of these options when adding 401k savings in RightCapital is the maximum contribution. And this is automatically going to lock in that maximum contribution for that individual for the current year and beyond, as long as we have these savings occurring within the plan. So for those of you that are using this option for clients for 401k savings, 403b savings, or 457b savings, that contribution limit will update automatically within the projections to reflect that $500 increase, that 23.5K for 2025. I do want to mention that'll also include that $7,500 catch-up contribution for those who are 50 or older, and something that isn't necessarily new to RightCapital, but is maybe worth mentioning is that there is also an increased catch-up occurring starting this year in 2025 for those between age 60 and 63. So that is something that was already happening in the future-looking projections, but just because 2025 is the first year that that's going to be occurring in reality, do know that if you have clients who are between 60 and 63 as of this year, and we're maximizing those contributions, they will be eligible for that increased catch-up of 11,250, and you'll see that reflected within the cash flows. As I mentioned, that change is going to apply to not only 401k savings, but also 403b savings and 457b savings. So, all those contribution limits are going to be updated. And there are some additional changes related to savings as well. And to discuss these, I do want to take a quick look at the RightCapital Help Center. So as a reminder, you can always access our Help Center by clicking the chat bubble in the lower right and then clicking Search Our Help Center here. In particular, I want to take a quick look at our savings module overview. So if you search for savings in our Help Center, it should be one of the first things that you see here in that list. And this article is going to be a great resource for you if you have any questions about any of the savings types in RightCapital, and if you're looking to see any of those updated 2025 values for things like contribution limits, deductibility phase outs, income limits, and so on. So just as an example, if we take a look at our 401k, 403b, and 457b section here, we'll find that increased contribution limit listed here for those employee contributions. So you can find those values listed here. I want to mention that there was also an increase to the qualified plan maximum, those employee plus employer contributions within the system. We can see that listed here at the top. So that increased from 69,000 in 2024 to 70,000 this year in 2025. I want to mention that even though there wasn't a change to, the actual contribution amounts, contribution limits for traditional IRAs in 2025, it's that same 7,000 plus that $1,000 catch up for those 15 older. There was an increase to the deductibility phase outs here. So you can find those new values listed here for 2025 for those clients that might be concerned about, being able to fully deduct those IRA contributions. In a similar vein, when it comes to Roth IRAs, there was an increase to the income limits, that, allow clients to be eligible to make those contributions. So once again, you can find those increased limits here, both for single filers and those who are married filing jointly. So you can find those increased values in this article. So, in summary, this article is a great resource for you if you have any questions about any of the new values for 2025 as it relates to savings, contribution limits, income phase outs, and more. It's not listed in this article, but it is also definitely worth mentioning that there was an increase in the IRS compensation limit that can be taken into account for both contributions and deductions. So that was increased from 345,000 to 350 for 2024 or 2025 rather. So might not impact everybody, but for those high earners especially, that's something to be aware of. And all of these contribution limits, phase outs, and more are built into the system in RightCapital, and all of that's being applied going forward. All right, so I want to make sure that I also mention some of the changes that might impact Social Security. So if you're allowing RightCapital to do the calculation for a client's future Social Security benefits, again, you might see some slight changes within your plans as it relates to those benefits. So for this, I'm going to pivot into the profile income section of this plan and take a quick look at one of these Social Security cards. So as it relates to these updates, they're mainly going to impact your plans if you're using either the simple estimate, which takes a look at the client's salary information and uses that to generate a history of earnings and project an eventual benefit, or if you're using based on historical covered earnings, which is going to allow you to actually plug in the client's real covered earnings history, and it's going to calculate their benefit the same way that you'd see that benefit calculated if you were to plug in those values on SSA.gov. So if you're allowing RightCapital to do the calculation in one of those two ways, you might see some slight differences in the Social Security benefit amounts being calculated within your plans. And the reason for that is, some updates that were made, increases to the PIA bend points that are used to, calculate monthly benefits when filing at full retirement age. And just like savings, we do have resources in our help center that will be useful for you if you're looking for more information there. If you search for PIA, for example, you'll find an article with, a breakdown of how that calculation works, and you'll also find those increased bend points for 2025. So you can find all that information here. I want to mention that if you have clients who might be impacted by the family maximum, that's also something that might see some slight changes. If you have multiple individuals filing based on a single earnings record, there is a limit to the number of benefits that can be claimed based on that one individual's record, and it has a similar formula with similar bend points And you can find all of those values here in this article for the Family Max. And last thing I'll mention related to Social Security, there was an increase in the Social Security benefit base. It's around 176,000 now, I believe. That's the upper income limit used for, the Social Security portion of FICA taxes, as well as the upper income limit for that PIA calculation for monthly benefits at full retirement age. So those are the main things to keep in mind in terms of 2025 updates as it relates to Social Security. All right. Next thing I want to mention here is Medicare and some of the changes there. And in particular, this is going to impact client plans that are using a specific option to calculate healthcare costs in retirement. So for this one, I'm going to pivot into the profile goals area and take a quick look at the annual retirement health cost card. So within this card, this is where we can tell the system what we want to see in terms of cost and timing for healthcare and in retirement. And in particular, there were some updates to the standard premiums for Medicare Parts B and D, as well as to the IRMA brackets and adjustments. And within your client plans, you'll see an impact potentially on both of those things if you're using the detailed estimate within this card to calculate healthcare costs. So, national average is simply going to reflect the most up-to-date national average for healthcare costs in retirement. Customized amount allows you to plug in your own value, but the detailed estimate is a little bit unique in that RightCapital will automatically calculate for you based on the client's MAGI, both Medicare Part B and Part D premiums. So as I mentioned, both of those parts of Medicare had increases in the standard monthly premiums. I believe Part B increased to 185 and the national base premium for Part D increased to, I want to say, $36 or $37. So you'll see some slight increases there for both of those. So that could potentially impact, Medicare costs within your client plans if you're using the detailed estimate option here. The other components of this, which is also related to the detailed estimate, is going to be IRMA adjustments. And for this, I'm going to take us into the tax strategies area of the plan. There's a chart here that allows us to better visualize those IRMA brackets, and you'll see the adjustments that happen at each of those MAGI thresholds. So within the tax strategies area, if we click into the calibration tab, one of the charts available here is the Medicare premium tax bracket chart. And there were increases both to the MAGI thresholds for each IRMA bracket, as well as an increase in the monthly adjustments for parts B and D. So you'll find those updated values listed here in this chart. I'll zoom in a little bit to make it a bit easier to see here. Again, just as an example, that first bracket increased from an adjustment of $83 to $88 a month if they're over that threshold. And these are all future dollars we're looking at here. So those dollar amounts are inflated, but regardless, depending on the client's MAGI at different points in time, this can be an important consideration in terms of how their Medicare premiums might be impacted later in their life, as we can see here in this example. So I definitely wanted to make sure to highlight some changes that you might see there related to those MAGI, or rather the IRMA brackets and thresholds, the MAGI thresholds. All right, so I know that was a lot of information. To wrap up these 2025 updates, there are a handful of additional tax parameters that I want to touch on here in the tax module. And these can be helpful to know if your clients have questions about what changes have occurred and how that might impact the federal taxes that they'll potentially pay in 2025. So let's start with ordinary income here. We're going to stay right here in the tax strategies calibration tab. One of the charts we can look at here is the ordinary income tax bracket chart. And this is where we can see, those brackets under TCJA that we're using here. So, those brackets themselves didn't change in terms of the percentages, but the income thresholds for each bracket did change. And again, I'll zoom in a little bit. We can see those increased bracket thresholds for each of those tax brackets listed here in the first year of this plan. Same goes for the capital gains tax brackets. We didn't see a change in the brackets themselves, but the dollar amounts did change for those thresholds. So you can find those updated values here as well. And of course, it's worth mentioning that the standard deduction was increased as well for 2025. So within the tax estimate area, if we take a look at the sample 1040 for this client in the details tab, the standard deduction did increase to $30,000 for those who are married filing jointly, as we see in this plan. So all of the other standard deductions were updated for all of the different tax filing statuses as well, and you'll see those changes reflected within your client plans going forward for this year. Last thing I'll mention, that is potentially important for those that might be doing some estate planning this year. There was an increase in the estate exemption under TCJA. I believe it's just shy of $14 million for 2025. So that did go up. So if you have clients that are concerned about, potentially being hit with some estate taxes, in that regard, do know that that estate exemption has been updated within the system as well. All right, so that covers it for the tax parameter updates, or all of the major ones at the very least, and that is by far the most technical we're going to get here today. So, I apologize if that made your eyes glaze over a little bit, but hopefully that was helpful for you in understanding, why the output of your client plans might have changed a little bit, and hopefully you feel a bit better equipped now to answer any questions that your clients might have about that. There are a few updates that I didn't touch on, just for the sake of time today, but if you're wondering about a change that maybe I didn't mention just now, feel free to write into the Q&A. I will be looking over that in just a bit here, so I'd be happy to address any lingering questions about tax parameter updates. Alrighty, speaking of taxes, I want to use this opportunity to segue into the next portion of today's presentation, where we'll be touching a little bit more on reviewing and updating your client plans as we head into the new year. And I want to start with some plan settings to be mindful of, just to put a bow on all of these tax parameter updates that we just reviewed. So I'm going to be clicking into the plan settings here within Barry and Iris's plan. So I'll click into the gear icon in the upper right, and then into the settings tab. And there's a few things I want to review within this area, starting with the inflation assumptions, which you can find in the other assumptions tab here. So um, these haven't changed as of the new year, but these are certainly something to be mindful of, just because all of those different tax parameters that we just touched on, we update those on a yearly basis. But as we look to the future within the plan projections, we assume an increase on those different values using the various inflation rates within this page. So the numbers on my screen here are the default inflation assumptions in RightCapital. The ones that are most relevant to our conversation here today are going to be, tax inflation, which is what the system will use to increase those tax bracket thresholds, as well as those contribution limits out into the future. Social Security inflation, which is going to be applied to some of those bend points that we touched on, and Social Security wage base, as well as healthcare costs, which applies to those healthcare costs within the plans. So all of these inflation assumptions are impactful in different ways and are always something to be mindful of as we look to the future within our plans. I do want to touch next on the tax law as it's related to planning in 2025. Certainly a hot topic at the moment, something that clients will likely have questions about as we, do some tax planning for 2025 and beyond. And, while there are a lot of things that are certainly still up in the air, RightCapital does give you some flexibility to model different possibilities within your client plans. So this isn't new necessarily for this year, but I think it's a timely reminder that within each client plan, you can always update the tax law assumption that's being used within the gear icon settings tax assumptions tab. And you have three options to choose from here. You have TCJA that assumes a sunset at the end of 2025. So we can, see what it looks like using TCJA rules this year and then switching back to 2017 tax law for 2026 and beyond. We can view a plan assuming that TCJ isn't going to sunset, and we can stick with those tax brackets and other variables throughout the duration of the projections. And then there's also an option to simply look at 2017 tax law throughout the projections as well. So you don't necessarily need to change this setting for any of your clients at the moment. We'll certainly find out more in regard to what's going to happen there as time goes on this year. But if your clients have questions about this, it's definitely important to have the flexibility to You'll look at these different scenarios and see the impact that that could potentially have on a client plan. So just wanted to highlight that tax law setting as well. While we're here in the tax assumptions tab, another good setting to double check at the beginning of the year here is, at the very bottom of this page, this final setting under other, which allows you to specify your prior year's magi, or this household's prior year's magi rather. So this is a useful setting for two reasons potentially. If you have clients with student loans that are on an income-driven repayment plan, there's a 1-year look back there in terms of calculating those income-driven repayment amounts. And then for clients that, are using that detailed estimate option that we just looked at for Medicare premiums, there's a 2-year look back there in terms of Magi for those Medicare premiums and those IRMA adjustments. So we give you the ability to enter the client's Magi from last year and the year before, just for slightly more accurate projections in the first year or two of the plan as it relates to student loan calculations and Medicare calculations. But of course, now that it's the new year, you might need to update these values to, instead of reflecting 2022, I believe it would have been here. Now this will be 2023. And similarly, we can update this from 2023 to 2024 to make sure that those specific elements of the plan stay up to date here. All right, so there's one more plan setting that I want to touch on here, and this one is going to be found in the methodology tab of the plan settings. So the last setting to be particularly mindful of as it relates to the turn of the year is this setting in the upper right here, cash flow and simulation starts. And this setting, this one is what determines the start date of our cash flows, which is a really important element, especially as we're doing planning for the next calendar year. So a common practice that I see a lot of advisors tend to use is in the earlier half of the year, as we're closer to the beginning of the year, we'll maybe use the January 1st of this year option. And then as it gets closer to the end of the year, some advisors do like to switch to January 1st of next year to align the cash flow start date a little more closely with the actual, date in reality. So if you're someone who likes to do that, definitely be mindful to double check what setting we're using here. Just as an example, I do have January 1st of next year selected here at the moment. And if we take a quick look at the retirement section and pop into the cash flows, we'll notice that 2025 isn't being included because I have that cash flow start date set to next year. We're actually starting on January 1st of 2026. So if that's what you want, you can certainly use that setting. But if you want to be able to do some planning for calendar year 2025, just be mindful that you may want to change this back to January 1st of this year within this page. We can take another quick look here at the cash flows if we refresh, and we'll see, full year projections being generated for 2025. Just to wrap things up here in regards to plan settings, I will mention back in the Help Center here, there's lots of great resources for you in relation to all of these settings. So if you're looking for more information on those cash flow start dates, for example, we have an article dedicated to that, walking through the different options and explaining how all of them work in detail. If you're looking for more information potentially on all of those different inflation rates, and maybe you're wondering what exactly does the tax inflation rate do within the system, we have all of that information detailed here. So again, lots of great resources in our help center if you need any more information on any of the things we just touched on as it relates to plan settings. All right, in addition to the plan settings, I also want to make sure I talk about some best practices in terms of reviewing and updating the information within a client's profile. So, plan settings are important, but of course, the information that's entered within the plan, the information we're using as our baseline, is of equally as important here. And the first thing I'll mention is that, the blueprint module of the profile. So profile blueprint here, this in a lot of ways is, one of the better areas to review all of those inputs all in one place. And the reason for that is this blueprint module kind of takes all of the inputs that are entered across all the different sections of the profile here and really consolidates all that information and displays it on a page that is a little bit easier to see everything without having to, click around and scroll. So Just as an example, if you need to review a client's net worth, you can find all of their assets and liabilities broken out here and very easily spot check those balances on this page. So when it comes to updating a client's net worth and all of their assets, I will say if the client's accounts are linked, either using account aggregation, or if you've imported those with an advisor level integration, might not be as much work for you to do there. All that information should just continue to update automatically within the system. So, could potentially save you some time there if you have those accounts linked within the plan. But of course, if those accounts are entered manually, like we see here within my plan, it can definitely be a good practice to review these balances and make sure that those are up to date. You may need to reach out to the client potentially to get some of that, those updated balances and information, but that's something we'll review here in just a bit on some, tips that you can utilize in terms of client outreach and gathering information there. As it relates to a client's goals, the beginning of the year can be a good time for you and your clients to sort of reevaluate how their priorities may have shifted over the last year and maybe identify some goals that might not be so relevant anymore and maybe add some new goals that clients have going into the next year. So the goals area of the blueprint is a great place to sort of walk through all of the goals that we have entered in this plan and maybe identify some things that need to be updated, added, or changed in any way. So, a pro tip for you here that I always like to mention, something to be mindful of as it relates to goals is that, you know, while goals that occur in the past won't have an impact on the plan projections after the turn of the new year, it can still be useful to, remove goals that have already occurred just to clean things up a little bit in the profile. And a great way to identify past goals that have already happened is actually to toggle back and forth here between the timeline view, where we see everything listed out by year, and the board view, where we see everything listed by cost. So in particular, if there are any past goals that have already occurred, those won't be included in the timeline. This will always start at the beginning of the current calendar year. So if you see a goal listed on the board view that you don't see listed on the timeline view, that's a good indicator that maybe that goal's already happened. So in this case, there is actually one goal that we can look at here. We don't see it on the timeline here, but if we switch to the board view, there's a trip to Europe that, isn't reflected on that timeline. And if we click into this tile, we can see that the reason for that is because this goal already happened in 2024. So if that's the case, you can always remove that goal to clean up that client's profile and make sure that all of those goals that have already occurred are no longer being displayed within some of these visuals here. So I will go ahead and delete this just to complete that example here. Last thing I want to mention is, of course, income, savings, and expenses. Beginning of the year can be a good opportunity to update all that information. If there have been any changes to the client's earnings in terms of their salary, self-employment income, or whatever other income streams they might be receiving, if they've made any changes to contributions being made to their 401ks, IRAs, or any of their other investment accounts, and of course, expenses as well. We can find all of that information listed here. Very easy to review each of these tiles and quickly spot check these inputs, make any updates if necessary. So as we're popping into these client plans for the first time in the new year, I'll say it's a good practice generally to review the plan settings to make sure that you're happy with how things are set up there, and to review the profile to clean things up, remove any items that have already occurred and maybe are no longer relevant, and to make any necessary updates to the remaining information to ensure that the baseline information that we're using within the retirement projections is accurate and up to date. Of course, there might be times when you do have to reach out to clients in order to gather some of this information. And at the end of the day, nobody knows your clients better than you do. So you're welcome to reach out to them and connect with them whenever you'd like and however you'd like. But RightCapital does offer you and your clients some tools that you can choose to utilize that can maybe help to streamline this process and make things a little bit easier for both yourselves and for your clients. So I want to talk next about some of the ways that you can utilize tasks as well as the vault to both engage with clients and collect information from clients, all within the RightCapital financial plan. So the first thing that I want to mention as it relates to both tasks and the vault First and foremost, clients do have to be invited to access their plans in order to view tasks and interact with their vault. So that's the first step of this process. You would have to choose that client from your client list, navigate over to their client access tab, type in that client's email, and send them their invitation. So, if they're not invited, there's no way for them to see those tasks, and there's no way for them to access the vault. So definitely something to be mindful of there. And again, we have lots of resources in our help center dedicated to, inviting clients in RightCapital and easy ways to do that. So definitely take a look at our help center if maybe you haven't invited clients in the past, and maybe that's something you're considering doing in 2025. Once that client has been invited, you will be able to both assign them tasks within their financial plan, as well as use the shared folder of the vault to exchange files and other information with clients. And all of this is done directly within their financial plan, just to make your lives a little bit easier in terms of managing all of that information all in one place. So when it comes to tasks, the tasks module is located within the dashboard section of each client plan. And while I don't have any tasks entered here at the moment, we're able to add either individual tasks or entire task templates. And I actually have a task template pre-built for this presentation with some items that you can potentially utilize for beginning of the year updates and planning conversations. So let's go ahead and add this template I made for starting the year off right. We can see that this template includes a number of tasks. So task templates are essentially a way for you to assign multiple tasks to a client all at once within a plan. So let's go ahead and save this and take a look at some of these tasks, and then we can pivot into the advisor portal and take a look at how you can create your own task templates to potentially utilize here. So again, these are just examples of things that you can do with tasks. Of course, you're free to use these however you'd like within your practice, but you can utilize tasks to, ask your clients to upload recent account and loan statements to their vault. So again, you can assign those tasks to the clients. They'll see these appear within the tasks area of their dashboard once they've been assigned. And once those tasks have been completed, the client will also be able to mark those tasks complete. So you'll be able to see on your end when those tasks have been completed. So definitely a lot of value there in terms of asking clients for up-to-date information. For those clients that maybe you're allowing to do a little bit of their own data entry, you have a little bit more control over some of the values that are entered in the plan. You can always, leave notes for clients and ask them to review some of that information themselves. So again, just an example, but you can ask clients to review their salary information within their profile, update any of their contributions if those have changed at all over the last year, and ultimately take a look over those accounts and loans and the net worth and make sure that all those balances are accurate. So clients can certainly assist you in doing that if you feel comfortable giving them the ability to update some of their profile information. I will mention you can also assign tasks priority. So whether you want that to be high priority, low priority, or none, you have the ability to mark those, different levels of priority as well. Just a pro tip for you there. I have another task here related to goals, asking clients to start thinking a little bit more about financial goals and how their priorities might have shifted before meeting for the first time in the new year. So again, just an example for you there. And then the last thing I want to highlight here with tasks is that you can also assign tasks to yourself as the advisor. So these aren't just a way for you to reach out to clients. You can also use tasks for your own purposes. So I have a couple tasks here that I've assigned to myself as the advisor, and I've chosen to hide these from the client. So the client actually won't see these on their end. These are for my eyes only as the advisor. So, if you want to add reminders for yourself here to reach out to clients and schedule those follow-up meetings, or if you want to add a reminder to spot check some of the inputs in the profile and make sure that all the information that the client is updated matches up with the statements that they've provided for you in their vault. You can add reminders for yourself, and ultimately, once you've completed your own tasks, you're able to check those off here, mark those complete, and proceed from there. All right, so I do want to take a quick look before we move on from tasks at task templates in the advisor portal. So if you want to create your own task templates and utilize those with your clients, task templates are a great opportunity to do that. And in the advisor portal here, you should see the templates tab listed right here in your upper menu bar. If you don't see it here, there's a chance it's located in the more menu here within the three dots icon, but regardless, it should be pretty easy for you to find here. And in particular, the tasks tab of the templates module is where we can view those existing task templates and ultimately create our own new task templates. So you can click the new template button here in the upper right. You can name these templates whatever you'd like. So 2025 planning, for example. And then you can start adding one or more individual tasks to those templates. So when you add these tasks, you can choose when that task will be due in relation to whatever date you assign that template. You can choose who you'd like to complete that task, whether that's yourselves as advisors or assistants, or even your entire firm, or individual clients or advisors can be assigned as well. You can make sure to mark those tasks visible or not visible to clients, depending on whether or not you want them to see those. And then ultimately, you can write the description of the task here, and that's what will be displayed, within the plan. So you can rinse and repeat this process until, you've added all the tasks you'd like to see for that template. And then when it comes to actually assigning these task templates within client plans, you can always assign these one at a time, like we just did within the dashboard tab of Barry and Iris's plan. But there is also a tasks module within the advisor portal. So I have write flows enabled for my account. So more likely than not, you will simply see a tasks module here. But if you have write flows like I do, just know that tasks is located within write flows in your advisor portal. But ultimately, it's the same either way. Once you're in the tasks dashboard here, you're actually able to assign tasks and task templates to multiple clients at once. So if you have, an entire group of clients potentially that you want to assign a template to, you can select entire client groups, all of my existing clients or all of my prospects, or you can mix and match individual clients as well. And that can certainly be a very helpful way to save you time as it relates to, assigning these task templates to clients in bulk in that way. All right. So I do want to make sure I touch on the vault as well. I won't spend too much time on the vault just for the sake of time here, but just to quickly review, how that functionality works. It is the same on both the advisor side and the client side. So everything I'm about to show you will also be true for your clients. If they have any questions about how to utilize the vault, you can always access a client's vault within a specific client plan by clicking into the folder icon in the upper right. And within the vault, there are two folders, both for yourselves as well as for your clients. There's a shared folder, which, as the name suggests, is shared between you and the client. So any files that you upload here will be visible to the client and vice versa. So if you're asking clients to provide you with account statements or loan statements or tax returns or anything that you would like to be able to see, they will want to make sure to add that file to the shared folder of the vault. And in terms of uploading those files, they can simply drag and drop those into the window, choose that file from their computer, and it's pretty straightforward there. You also have a private folder. So, both you'll have a private folder on the advisor side, and clients will also have a private folder on the client side. So, if the client tells you that they've uploaded something and you're not seeing it in the shared folder, chances are they accidentally uploaded that to their private folder. You may need to ask them to circle back and make sure that's located in the shared folder. But for your purposes as advisors, this can be useful for storing any files or documents that you need to just see for yourself that are for your eyes only. So again, just some samples of what you can upload here that maybe you wouldn't necessarily want to share with the clients. You can store all that information in your private folder. So you may notice that you are able to create folders here within the vault, which can certainly help keep things a little organized for clients. You can create folder layouts in advance and make it a little easier for clients to know exactly where to upload certain types of documents. And there is actually something I want to showcase back in the templates tab in this regard as well. So while you can always create folders within an individual client's vault, like we just looked at, within the templates area, once again, you do also have the ability to create vault templates. So These are going to allow you to create folder layouts in advance and then apply those folder layouts to multiple client vaults at a time. So again, I just have a sample here with a couple folders pre-built that, might help to organize things a little bit for clients before they upload those documents for you. If I wanted to apply this folder layout to Barry and Iris, before asking them to send me some of that information, I can click the apply template button here. Again, just like tasks, you can assign these to one or more clients at a time. And let's go ahead and assign this to Barry so we can take a look at what that looks like in the plan. So back in my client list, let's pop back into Barry Allen's plan here. If we revisit the vault, we see that those folders have been automatically generated within this area. We can see that we've created these folders as the advisor because they're marked with an A icon here. So clients won't be able to delete these or move these since we created them, but they will be able to upload files within them. So just to help make things a little bit more streamlined for clients in terms of where to upload what, you can create these folder layouts in advance. The last thing that I want to showcase in terms of the vault for today is the shared documents folder in the advisor portal vault. So just like tasks, the vault is something that you can access at the individual client level within a client's plan, but there's also an advisor level vault available within the advisor portal here. And not only is this a convenient way to, take a look at an overview of every individual client vault, and you can even quickly pop into a client vault this way as well by clicking on a client's name. But the thing that I want to showcase today for our purposes for new year planning is the shared documents folder. And this is a great way for you to, share the same document with multiple clients at a time and, bulk upload that document essentially or a folder to, multiple client plans. So if you're going to be asking clients to share documents with you, you can theoretically do something like I've done here. You can create a folder within the shared documents area, title that something like data collection forms. And then within that folder, you can add all the files, all the forms that you want to share with those clients to, gather updated income amounts, updated goals and information there, and, updated expenses as well. So just a couple examples here of some things, some data collection forms. Ultimately, once these are created here in the shared documents folder, we can choose to push this folder or this file to one or more clients or client groups at a time, just like we saw with tasks. So maybe we want to push these documents to all of our clients. And maybe we want everyone in our book of business to have access to these data collection forms just to make our lives easier in terms of gathering that information from our clients. Now that we've added all clients here for the data collection forms that I've uploaded, if we click back into the vault for one of our clients here, for Barry Allen and Iris West, we'll now see there's a new folder at the top here, a documents folder. And this will be where all of those bulk uploaded files are located. So this will be present at the top of the vault for any clients that you've chosen to bulk upload those shared documents with. And here we can see, this client will now be able to download and fill out these data collection forms that we uploaded here. So again, hopefully that's, helpful for you. Certainly a convenient feature and can save you a lot of time when it comes to, reaching out to clients, asking for some of that updated information and engaging with them directly within their RightCapital financial plan. All right, to wrap up our presentation here today, I want to spend just a few minutes looking over the Right Intel module. This is something that's going to be available for anyone operating on a premium or platinum RightCapital subscription, and in particular, the opportunities tab of the Right Intel module is what we're going to be looking at today. And while this is something that's available year round, the new year can be a good opportunity for you to, potentially revisit some of this information and identify areas of opportunity within your book of business. So just to quickly review what we have here, the cash tab allows you to easily identify clients who have cash on hand to potentially reinvest with you, or clients who might benefit from bolstering their cash savings potentially on the lower end here. So you can quickly and easily identify cash balances across your entire book of business. Same thing goes for assets held away. You can quickly and easily see accounts that your clients have invested elsewhere, providing you with an opportunity to potentially convert those assets to your management in the new year. The debt tab is going to house all of your clients' loan data. This is where you can quickly identify, which clients might benefit from something like a loan consolidation or, a refinance or even just a check-in to help spark a debt management conversation. And then the insurance tab is going to display, active term and disability insurance policies. So, in particular, the valuable thing here is that it highlights the policy expiration dates. So if you can, see here that a policy is about to expire in 2025, that allows you to step in and potentially avoid, a lapse in coverage for that client. Lastly, we have our key events tab here. And this is the one that's most directly impacted by the turn of the new year. This page will display key events like retirement age, Social Security filing age, Medicare filing age, all of the things that are listed here. And we can see the exact year and month that these things are occurring, which can be really useful in identifying which clients have major life events and milestones occurring within the next month or within the next year. So as we can see here, I even have a client who's set to retire this month. So again, this can be a really helpful way to set yourself up for success in the new year. Quickly and easily identify which clients might provide your business with the most opportunity, but also which clients might benefit the most from a check-in. Clients who have important financial milestones on the horizon. Last thing I'll mention as it relates to key events, if you would prefer to be notified of these as they're coming up, you can choose to include key events in your daily report email. So I do want to quickly touch on notifications. I saw some questions come in before about notifications related to tasks and vault uploads as well. So I'll make sure to cover all of that here as well. Within the bell icon in your advisor portal, this is where you can set up your notification settings first and foremost. So looking at the notification settings section of this area, we can choose what kind of notifications we'd like to opt into for different events. So that includes things like vault uploads. If you want to be notified by email whenever clients upload or download files from their vault, you can opt in to receive those notification emails. Same goes for tasks. If in your daily report email, if you want to see, an update on all of those tasks that are due soon, all the tasks that have been newly assigned and what tasks might be overdue, you can choose to be notified of that within your daily report email. And same goes for key events. You can have those key events that are upcoming included in that daily report email as well. So if you have at least one of these boxes checked in this column, you've likely been receiving the daily report email from RightCapital. This gets sent out, I believe, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and it gets sent out once a day within, an hour or two of that time frame. So this can be a great way to stay on top of some of these items, by opting into these daily report emails. Of course, all of these things can also be included in the notification center right here within RightCapital. And that's what we'll find here in the notifications section of the notification center. So we can see here we have an overview of what tasks are upcoming, overview tasks, and then also we would see some of those key events, those Right Intel alerts. So we can see my client that's set to retire this month. We can see a client is reaching age 50 for those cash up contributions. So all that information can also be included here within RightCapital's notification center, as well as those email notifications. As it relates to client notifications, notifications that clients will receive for vault uploads and tasks, you have the ability within the client settings area of your advisor portal. Again, this might be listed in the upper menu bar, might be located in the more menu, but regardless, client settings is where you'll find client notifications. And this is where you can decide what notifications you want your clients to receive by default. So if you want your clients to get emails about upcoming tasks, you can choose to check this box. You can choose the frequency of those reminders. So a lot of control there. And ultimately, you can do the same thing for vault uploads as well. If you want clients to be notified when you've uploaded documents to the shared folder, you can choose to have the clients receive those email notifications as well. The one thing I'll say as it relates to client notifications, once the client has been invited, they do have the ability to log into their plan and access these notification settings for their specific plan. So, clients can choose to opt out of these notifications, even if you've turned them on by default. So definitely something to keep in mind there. This isn't a global set of notifications for all of your clients. This is the default settings for all new plans that you create. So if I were to create a new client household right now, it would mimic all of these email notification settings for the client. So ultimately, the clients are able to control their own notification settings, but of course, you can control what's checked by default within their client plans.